Initial first thoughts is Lucian's really powerful because he can be blind flexed into mid top, and even he can go AD carry. Syndra ban is sort of whatever. I guess it's targeted mostly at night. Obviously, I wholly disagree with Renekton bans, especially if you have willingness to just pick Ornn and stuff. You should actually implore the opponents to pick Renekton. But this usually stems from something that happens inside of like scrims or like personal feel or like solo queue, where they have like recency bias or something, and they don't want to opt into a matchup that they've played, however many times. I have no idea. Lilia ban is also interesting. There's a lot of junglers that can obviously go tit for tat with her, but she is one of those blind pickable junglers just because of the way that she slots into a lot of various team compositions and the way that she can conduct herself as a mage, and the way that she can solo take over a game. I think that's fine. Nidalee ban is kind of weird. It's whatever. Twisted Fate ban, I think, is another one that you don't necessarily need to ban. They're hovering Lulu at the very start of the draft phase. It moves over to Caitlyn. I think Caitlyn's fine. I think the answers to Caitlyn we're probably not going to end up seeing, obviously, at Worlds. Instead, we're just going to have vacuum responses like Ashe and Graves and Jhin and things of this nature because things are boring. Obviously, like other answers to Caitlyn would be stuff like Jinx, or just actually taking mages down into bot lane and things of that nature. So we're not going to obviously see stuff like this because we're almost at quarterfinals. Maybe we'll see it then, but who really knows? Ashe and Graves is really weird. And the reason that Ashe and Graves is really weird is you think about what the map's going to look like and what certain dances are going to be around both Baron and then Dragon and whatnot. And you also know that they're both on hit primarily, right? Obviously, if you continue to draft like CC and chain CC and stuff like that, you begin to lose some effectiveness out of your Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but that's not the end of the world. However, these are both very short-range champions. Obviously, Ashe has her volley. She has her W, which she can use to poke, and she can try to do stuff of that nature. But it's not that much damage. It's not as problematic. Yes, we do see stuff like Ashe's Zoe and things of that nature as some sort of like spin-off of Zoe Ezreal, but realistically, you don't entirely think of Ashe as like this poke champion. You mostly do think of her as a champion that does get close quarter combat at some point. She does have 600 range, so Caitlyn does still outrange her, not even factoring in when Caitlyn gets rapid fire cannon and things start to get a little bit more scary. So a lot of people, when they think of Ashe versus Caitlyn, they think of Ashe's ability to W volley, but Caitlyn just as a standalone does have more range, especially once she gets rapid fire cannon. But also more context needs to be applied because Ashe is not just always getting to spam volleys for free, and Caitlyn is not always spaced at exactly the distance where Ashe is just allowed to barrage, her arrows onto her over and over. So Ashe Graves, I think, is a really bad opening on R1, R2. I think it's too heavy commitment to a certain style. I don't think that it's as much of a blank vacuum as people perceive it to be. I think there's lots of answers that you can do. I think that the identity and the theme of these champions is already too committed. And thus, it should be able to actually be layered by B2, B5 by the opposing team. Now, the Kindred comes in as a handshake onto the Graves, but the thing about Kindred is she's already backing up and bolstering Caitlyn, which is already going to be more effective than the Ashe. Because of Kindred's ultimate, it also means that Ashe and Graves, like the things that we're talking about, close quarter combat, and things of that nature, now they're going to have to get even closer, or they're going to be outside of the Kindred ultimate, which means Caitlyn's even further protected. The Galio comes in a little bit blind. This one is something that does strike me as a little bit weird, especially because there are still some like anti-Kindred champions that can exist. We've also seen like Set into Galio, so there's always the possibility that we have like Set come into mid lane, but the problem would be if you have Set go into mid lane or something in order to not only answer the Galio, but also answer the Kindred, as well as a way to reliably reach the Caitlyn with the superplex and things like that, it does also continue to funnel you into the short range, hard engage style. So even though it would be a vacuum response to two of the champions with an ability to reach their third champion and have some sort of theme response there, it further digs yourself into that hole, and so I think the set would be really bad. So that's obviously not super good. This isn't just like an isolated draft thing, so we're not going to go into like a TSM draft dystopia thing where we end up talking about one draft for 1 hour and the different pivots and responses and how different champion selections that like B2, B3 can affect B4, B5, and how R3, then affects R4, R5 and pivots and yada, yada, yada. So we're not going to do that. Orianna ends up coming in. Now, the Orianna strikes me as really bizarre And the Orianna strikes me as really bizarre because DRX is already showing a stand your ground team composition. They're very protective. They have champions that enable Caitlyn's long range. Orianna does have terrain control, but Galio and Kindred don't really care about terrain control because they have terrain morphing pretty much with their ultimate, their taunt, Kindred's Lamb's Respite, etc. And because Orianna is currently getting matched essentially by Caitlyn, Orianna's going to need more stuff on her side in order to have actual effectiveness inside of the game, assuming even level of play at a very high level. So I think the Orianna is really bizarre. Yes, she can do stuff inside of mid laning phase. Yes, it's going to be magic damage mid, physical damage jungle. Yes, she can begin to get and match control over Galio. She can even bully him very hard if she does end up getting an advantage or things of that nature. But it just strikes me as very bizarre because I feel like she's still falling in line with the short range theme of Graves and Ashe, even though Orianna is generally longer range. She has a reliance on having some sort of synergy in her comp, otherwise her ball begins to lose a lot of effectiveness. Camille and Lux both get banned away here. Obviously, they're banning away Camille and Galio as a combo up in top lane. They also have to pick a blind champion here, and I think this is where like blinding top lane on R4 with something like GP begins to get pretty good. GP is actually really good against all three of these champions, disrupts the long range backline of Caitlyn, forces her to change her ground. Gangplank has a lot of value with his ultimate because not only can his ultimate incentivize early Lamb's Respite and allow your teammates to stay outside of the range of Kindred and thus undermine what she's trying to achieve. It's also really good for helping out the bot lane. It's very good for just being on an island, very good against most champions blind. But then in addition to that, it goes kind of 50-50 against Kindred. If you end up using it in the middle of the fight and Kindred gets value out of Lamb's Respite, then your ultimate begins to lose value. But if you have it either pre-fight or post-fight, then Gangplank gets value. So there's sort of like a layering game that's going on there between the two. So I think in that regard, it would definitely be very good. But yeah, I think blind pick top laner is very important here because you want to try to guarantee that Ashe has some sort of an edge down in bottom lane, because you need to guarantee that there's something chaotic going on the right-hand side of the map, because already the way that it stands, it does look like DRX are outscaling TES, and it's going to be very difficult for TES to pivot at this point in any way that they would probably be able to outscale their opponents. So I think in that regard, guaranteeing control over, this square basically on the map and then trying to fight for something surrounding like dragons ends up probably just becoming the end goal. But they did this to themselves with their R1, R2 picks. So that's pretty much that. Lulu is being hovered, and Ornn getting picked up right now. And Ornn just continues to basically drive home that protection that Caitlyn really wants. It further reinforces the scaling. The Bard comes in as even more terrain control. And already, like if you're Ashe and Graves and you're in the later stages of the game around, sorry, I drew that wrong. If you're around like the Dragon or the Baron or whatever, you're really asking like, what are we even really doing here? We can't really go short range against them. We can't be long range against them. They actually, interestingly, have more pick than us now. They have more scaling than us now. They have an extremely durable front line. And even in sustained fights, because of Kindred and Bard, and because of Ornn and stuff, post like Lamb's Respite, etc., it's also really problematic. So ultimately what ends up happening is you probably only have one response, which is to try to identify that this moving wall, or like this moving siege tank or ballista, is only going to be able to be deconstructed by like a reliable split pusher that can beat Ornn. And so you're mostly looking at what? You're looking at Fiora, you're looking at Tryndamere, so you're looking at Fiora and you're looking at Tryndamere, because you can never actually fight DRX head-on, and there's no way to outscale them head-on. There's no way to win reliable team fights with any like team fighting top laner. I think at this point you have to just acknowledge that they are a slow-moving fortress, and if you try to engage onto this, then it's going to be really bad. So I think everything right now for TS is pretty doomed. I feel like there are very limited range of options for top laners that still are even possible at this point. I don't think they really have too much that can go for them. I think that you have a rose-tinted glasses point of view if you think that like Vladimir can magically somehow push in bottom lane and then just rotate without the opponents having any sort of awareness of what's going on, and then magically he just gets this insane flame. Like how grossly unrealistic, or like how completely impractical of a situation. So yeah, that's not real. The other problem about Vladimir is now you're incentivizing even more MR. TS, so by the way, when I say that a team has a draft advantage, I don't mean it's 100-0. I remember saying on stream yesterday that I think this is more likely an 80-20 than, you know, just 100-0. I acknowledge that things can obviously go wrong inside of games, and then one team can win, you know, without the opposing team being able to have like any chance at coming back. We've seen it actually several times at Worlds so far. So we get into it. Spellbook on Ornn is definitely really good. It seems like Doran's not turning off his brain and going Grasp of the Undying, so that would have been definitely really bad. The Predator on Chovy is really strange. I don't think he needs Predator. I think it's a lot better actually for him to just have a scaling rune in this side of the game, because the onus is on TES in order to get ahead. We see the call start on 369, so I think that's really good for him. Chovy just coming in here. Fudge was saying on stream earlier this week, Chovy never missed the CS, but we did see that he just missed 2. Deft and Keria able to get a push down here into bot lane. They push 1, do nothing. Obviously, this is not a super ideal line. They are going to get level 2 first. Not going to be the end of the world. Now, this is the push 2, do nothing classic. So the push 2, do nothing classic is really strange. They're not going to achieve anything. They keep Jackie Love and Lulu. I really wish I could say the name correctly, but I just don't feel like I can right now. They push them underneath the turret. Deft has perfect CS right now, and now Deft is trying to poke a little bit. So we also see what the jungler's doing at this point in time. You see the ward on the red buff. They know about what Pioshik's doing. He's going to come down now. He's going to do the Gromp camp. Meanwhile, up in top lane, everything's just going pretty even. And this is an example of something where DRX, outside of the draft phase, if they, like, inaction is action for them. Every minute that passes, if the gold is totally even, DRX is more likely to win the game. So Doran up here in top lane, I think this is a pretty peculiar line. He's just playing very safe. Vladimir, at this point, his Qs don't deal an enormous amount of damage. He also has Cull. He has no potions, etc. Doran, not really realizing this isn't a very winning line for him, doesn't actually walk up in the lane any further, even though he has a ward, he has Kindred in close proximity, etc. I think this whole thing is just really weird. So this is one of the things that I've talked about in the Worlds broadcasts, even myself, is that the way that the observers are watching the game, it makes it a little bit difficult to talk about some of the lane states. Sometimes what you can end up happening is you get a camera pan and you get a freeze frame on a lane state like what we have right now, and you can sort of rewind it in your mind and realize that something must have went really wrong. We can rewind this lane in our mind to know that this freeze frame position for Vladimir is favorable for 369 and not favorable for Doran. But how did we actually get here? Because Doran's HP and his mana is still relatively decent, which means that he must have had more options in previous waves to not have allowed it to get to this point, and that he's obviously opted into losing lines. So no matter what, when we look top lane, even though Doran isn't losing, he's not playing as well as he could have. And so in that regard, it's a losing line, even if the state of the game does not, or like the bar does not identify him as losing. It's just not as ideal. There was something that he could have done that was probably better. Now, you can continue to see that up in top lane, despite him crashing the wave and not doing it as effectively as he did, he probably would have had an opportunity to do this a lot sooner. Crash, get the reset, go back to full HP, and then go back to full mana, and then just go back up into the lane. Now, the way that he's going to play it out is just not as ideal. Now, he's going to recall, but this is obviously done slower than he could have done it, and now we also see that 369 has the option to prevent the recall if 369 would just go fishing for a little bit. Now, 369 can, maybe go fishing for a little bit because they see where Graves is on the minimap. They know that there's not a lot of chance that Kindred would be top lane right now, and so 369 maybe just not stopping the Ornn reset is not ideal, because if 369 stops the Ornn reset, never mind, Ornn does stop the reset regardless. He goes into the brush, and then he actually builds a catalyst. This is definitely a losing line for Doran, and it's winning for 369. Pioshik, they come in there, they go in, they get a little bit of a camp. I'm mostly casting and commentating off the minimap only right now. You should be able to have a rough idea of what all the lanes are trying to do, and then just watch how they move inside of the lane. So Doran now up in top lane. Again, he's repeating the same mistakes as he had before, where he's not just instantly trying to crash in the wave. Now, with the wave that is just coming in, the other wave has barely just left the Nexus. The question ends up becoming, from this point, if Doran walks up into the lane with his biscuits and his red potion, which he should have already popped, is Vladimir able to kill him from 100 to 0 if he starts his trading and CSing of the minions after Vladimir has then gone on cooldown? The answer would be no. So if you sequence this out, you go into the freeze frame of this game, and you know where Graves is, and you know that Graves can't come and gank you, or you know that you're just not in any danger yourself, you can then just sequence out what Ornn should do in a spot like this, which would just be CSing the wave as fast as possible and ignoring Vladimir's damage, rather than having to blow your teleport and then getting back into the lane. Now, obviously, he has Spellbook. He has Spellbook available to him, so it's not necessarily that he actually hold his teleport and whatnot, but it's important to realize that this is 3 separate freeze frames now, where we've been able to point out that Doran is obviously doing something not ideal in the lane, or that there was a lot greater upside that he should have otherwise been able to achieve, and he just simply didn't. Not a Crownie's Comet, really nice magical journey, does get them out, and DRX manages to fade a death. Now, if we rewind right here, this is like one of those things again where, okay, so the lane is being pushed in by Deft and Keria. Now, this would be assumed the only timing where Graves could actually be bought to kill them. Now, because of what Deft has done with the wave, they feel pressured to finish the shove, because the wave was actually just about to reset. So, if you just let the wave completely reset, and you know that Jackie Love and whatnot are coming over here to maybe clear out a ward, you know that Orianna just got her blue buff, etc., you know that Galio has his ultimate, you could have just let the wave stand right in the center, and then just dance back here a little bit, let for Galio to get back into the mid lane, wait to see Orianna, and then allow the time to pass for Graves to not be able to gank bottom. This is the only way in which DRX can actually die, and it's because Deft has a hot date. They come up here, Pioshik is now moving up, they're going to stifle Graves a little bit, and again, TS, they're not able to really achieve anything, they're just going tit for tat pretty much everywhere. Graves ends up going for the Ninja Tabi as his boot choice. I think that this is pretty unfortunate that he's having to get early tier 2 boots, because he maybe feels pressured by mid-game team fights, or the reliance of having to move around. If you're TES right now, you're probably feeling doomed as players. Now again, DRX constantly keep trying to do these like invadey nonsense things, and if you notice, all of their jungle camps are up. Now again, this is the same exact thing as you know, if you can go up in you know, kilometers per hour versus your opponents go up, etc. Now, in a situation like this, they are attacking TS's ability to capture blue and things of that nature. They're trying to steal some camps away from Graves and all that good jazz, but in doing so, they're also flipping some coins. It's a lot more guaranteed, and it's a lot higher value to just clear your camps, get them to respawn. Pioshik is level 9, Graves is level 9. When the camps start now respawning at level 9, it's plus 35% EXP increase and whatnot. And again, DRX, they're the ones that are Thanos trying to assemble the Infinity Gauntlet. It is not on them to try to force things or make things, you know, happen sooner than expected. So right now, TS do get zoned out of the river. It seems like Deft is finally going to be able to raise the turret down in bottom lane. All of the camps right now for Pioshik continue to be up. They're going to end up getting themselves the Cloud Dragon. Now, the Cloud Dragon doesn't really matter that much, but what it does do is it does delay the soul by the opponents. This adds another 5 minutes to 5.5 minutes, basically, on the timer. Well, actually, it's greater than 5 minutes always, because it takes time to capture the dragon even after it spawns. So probably adds anywhere from like 5 minutes and 10 seconds to 5 minutes and 30 seconds, depending on what TS would want to do. And this is a lot of time. This is potentially 1.5 level ups, depending on the champion, with the amount of minion waves that are able to spawn and be taken by champions during this time. 1.5 levels in later stages of the game does probably mean anywhere from 1 to 2 extra ornaments that are able to be bestowed. This is a lot of gold that is able to go into the enemy team. This is probably, what, 2,000 gold or something, roughly, per player. So it's not outright an item, but it's a lot of things that you can definitely think about and entertain. Protobelt now completed for Galio, picks up a Fiendish Codex. I think this is where Chovy is going to begin to start going Zanya's Hourglass. Kindred's at 4 marks, 575 attack range. This is very good. Kindred's actually very close to also being pretty similar with Ashe in terms of the attack range, and so I think that in that regard it's very good. DRX now with a 1,000 gold advantage. 1,500 gold advantage, and remember, they're the team composition that's supposed to be behind. So this is really, really, really bad for TES. Game continuing, 3.5 minutes until Soul. Soul is the worst dragon for TES that is possible, and the reason that I say that is because the only way that TES should be able to win against the inevitability and the infinity gauntlet that is DRX's team composition, once they get Locket of the Iron Stellaris and Redemptions going, in addition to Galio just being this immovable wall and 3 and 4 item Caitlyn that's outranging everyone, because your champions tickle her, and there's too many heals and resistances that are basically going to be coming out on the enemy team. The only way they win is basically off of picks by Ashe or by Orianna getting an insane shockwave and somehow deleting Pioshik or deleting someone before a fight can even actually start. And so Mountain is just going to put a dent in that and just make it so much harder to kill, because the champions are just going to be so much tankier than they should have otherwise been. So it's very, very, very bad for TES. You could also say that the other dragon that would be really bad for them would be Ocean. So TES, unfortunately, with the Cloud Drake being rolled, is pretty much the worst case scenario for them. The best case scenario for TES would have been Ocean Dragon second, and then if Cloud would end up rolling as the Soul, because the Soul would be the worst for DRX of all the possible dragons that they could have ended up getting. So, okay, right now, we're DRX. We're heavily in the lead right now. We're so far ahead of our opponents. They're continuing to itemize in ways that don't make any sense. Boris is alive and well, everyone, as the Black Cleaver coming in onto Graves. Now, this is kind of strange. We do see the Ninja Tab Eyes on Kindred, but realistically, I mean, yes, they might be hitting the same champions, so the armor shred does get a little bit of value, but there's also going to be, well, I mean, there is Mountain Dragon and whatnot, but I think that his decision to get the Phage and then proceed into the Black Cleaver is a little bit weird. I'm not going to harp on this one as much as some other ones because of the nature of the fights, but obviously it is really terrible because of the champions that you have on your team. You're not getting as much value out of it as you otherwise could. And if you go and look at Graves and his bonus AD ratios and lethality items all having a lot more AD and giving him the upfront burst, and us also concluding that the way that TS likely wins team fights at this point is off the back of a pick, thus meaning that collateral damage and end of the line burst damage inside of that pick is going to be a lot more important than trying to shred through a couple of the targets, amplifying his own and Ashe's own resistances. So going double lethality with Lord Dominic's regard is probably going to be in line with what TES's best plan should be at this point. So DRX try to get a little pick off onto Knight, but again, it's not it's not their job to do anything. They need to do nothing. They just need to sit back and relax. So anyways, in this spot, why are they got a hot date? Why are we pushed up? Kindred's farming, Galio's in bot lane. Kindred has 2 camps up. Why are we pushing? Or something. I don't even know, man. It's so nonsense. So Deft had a little bit of a hot date. Pioshik, he wants to have a hot date himself. So Pioshik stops going to his camps because Deft was a little bit excited. Deft had a little bit of a hot date. Now, Reddit would leave you to believe that somehow the DRX players are getting something that I'm not. In which case, I don't know. Maybe I need to pull out a fucking microscope or something because I can't detect what apparently I'm not understanding about the game state being winning for DRX and simply inaction means that they win. They don't need the 500 gold on the mid-tier 1 turret because it's going to be dispersed between Deft and Carrier and then the remaining members. Do you think that Deft really needs 150 extra gold or something at this point in the game to win? Are you out of your goddamn mind? Feel free to ask TSM. They might tell you yes, though. So DRX, at this point, making absolutely no sense whatsoever because they're randomly pushed up in mid lane because they got a hot date. If you ask TES what happens here, if Caitlyn just backs up, Doran goes back up to top lane, and Kindred just keeps permafarming, go into the point of view of the TES players with their vision, okay, and you know, black out the map, okay, and you're the TES players, I wish I had pro view, you go into the vision of the TES players, and you're thinking, man, how do we win? Oh man, this feels really bad. I really hope they step up and try to fight right now before the ornaments. I really hope that ticking time bomb that is Ornn doesn't try to get a couple more levels and then start giving over items. That would be really bad. I really hope Ornn doesn't get a Locket of the Iron Stellaris so that my Vladimir engage does nothing. Oh man, it would be a real shame if Bard built Redemption. That would, yeah. Oh, come on, man. God, just go into the perspective of any of these TS champions. Such a nightmare. It's just doomed. It's this feeling of dread. Now, right here, they're feeling real happy. They're saying, wow, Deft's trolling. Deft's trolling. Pyoshik's trolling. Pyoshik's trolling, guys. Pyoshik's trolling. Cool. Look, we blew summoners. Cool. We got a camp. Look at this. DRX, they're trolling out of their mind. Awesome. Chovy stops farming. Look at all these camps by Kindred that just aren't being eaten. Look at all the EXP that Ornn is missing out on getting. Man, this is really cool. Really glad that DRX were the ones to force this for no reason. Everything's feeling really bad right now for TES. Now, Doron... About to come back up. Yeah, this is definitely a, this is a Monka moment. I'm not sure why he's looking for a fight here. Yeah, I think let's just wait. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, let's just wait, actually. No? 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 Guys? Hello? Why? For what? For what reason? Why are we even looking for this? Why is Ornn even here? It is such a problem that Ornn is even here. Doran, recall, dude. Hello? Recall. Stop moving. Everyone's game plan right now should just be like, guys, we're going 50 miles per hour. Only a couple more minutes, we're going to cross the finish line. And Ted and Larry in the back seat, they're like, no, step on the gas. We got to go quick. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, come on. All right, let's kick it into high gear. And then you have one person that's crying in the back seat, and he's like, no, guys, we just win. Like, there's no way they can catch up. No, fuck that. Come on, let's speed up right now. And the tires start, you start smelling the tires burning and stuff. You feel like the tires are going to pop. The car starts swerving. Like, you had the race. Oh, man. What a catastrophe. What a dooming catastrophe. All right. Great, yeah. Definitely glad we didn't just continue to farm our camps and scale up and let Ornn give a few items. Yeah. Woo! Really good holistic team decision. Really good. Really good awareness of what's going on in the game and the inevitability. They always have a hot date, and they always draft like sinners. And the one game where they managed to draft an actual saint and holy team composition, their inability to ever play team compositions like this and their natural nature as players just does not allow them to pilot this correctly. This is like giving one of your friends who only plays Murlocs and Hearthstone a control deck and then watching them completely blunder it, because they thematically do not understand what they're supposed to do or what the opponents need to have happen. So anyways, TS, they get the Mountain Dragon, and they buy themselves a lot of time, but the game is still not over. But the problem is that DRX's itemization is starting to really hurt them inside of the game. DRX's itemization is really starting to cause problems for them. Ornn is not with them. They're also very scattered, and so when they're scattered, it makes the game look a lot closer than it actually is, because DRX is a machine that basically requires all parts. And there's no way for, again, Vladimir to randomly shove up a wave and then somehow run to somewhere before Ornn's able to get there, because DRX has no responsibility to be anywhere, which then means that they also operate under less vision. Or they're able to operate with less vision because deductive reasoning, based on when they last saw their opponents and where they were. But the fact that, again, DRX should be at 2 Mountain Dragons right now. DRX should have been the one that was winning that team fight if they just itemized and built properly and took the fight properly. But instead, they took a very scattered fight. They had champions that are very integral to the team fight just do things very poorly. They had an initiation on Ornn. They had a random Galio follow-up. They left their marksman and their Kindred basically in isolation. And I mean, this is the stuff I was narrating live yesterday during the live viewing, so this is really bad. And if you're TES, so if some people are watching the speed VOD review and they're wondering why I'm being so focused on DRX, it's because DRX are the ones that have autonomy. And so TS's ability to crack or handshake or capitalize on the mistakes, it's obviously really nice, but the problem is that TS were left actually without options other than hoping that DRX makes the mistakes for them. Because otherwise, there's no way for their champions to actually create anything on their own, which is why I suggested that champions like Fiora and Tryndamere would completely change the dynamic had they come in on R5. Again, right here, they're very spread out. They randomly have a hot date, 10 seconds until the mountain comes up. You can see they're hugging. They're in really weird states. Now they're all retreating. Caitlyn's not with them. They give up control of River. And again, this is a byproduct as well of itemization. Right here, they're very concerned with the mid-minion wave over just guaranteeing that they get the dragon. So there's no Baron up. Even if they lose the mid-minion wave and the mid-turret, are they going to lose the game? No. Nope. They lose the mid-minion wave, and they lose the turret if TS just chooses to push down mid, and then they lose this camp, and they go out through this. What is a greater win? DRX getting golems, dragon, gromp, and bot wave, or TES getting mid wave, wolves, gromp, scuttle crab, top wave, and some river control of Baron. The river control of Baron is wholly irrelevant because TS cannot actually just start the Baron. So DRX should acknowledge that the Mountain Dragon also provides a lot of permanent stats. It brings them one Drake within Mountain Soul, and it is infinitely greater than the feel-good dopamine kick of matching the mid-push wave and thus conceding control of River. Crowny's Comet does fly by. Really, really, really poor positioning. And you can see that Graves was even just getting zoned out a little bit by Caitlyn. But yeah, I mean, this is just a really, really bad game by DRX. They get zoned out. They give up yet another Mountain Dragon. We're going to speed up a little bit, though. I actually do not have too much time left. This was supposed to be a speed VOD review, but it turned into a very long explanation of team comps and their functionality and everything like that. Even with the complete lack of proper items and the team constantly fighting really, really, really poorly, the games are... See, like, you see this, right? We were able to narrate, like, stuff like this happening in the beginning, where Lamb's Respite just completely ruins it because Galio threatens close quarter, so Orianna, Ashe, and Graves don't actually want to go in. But when they're protected by this and all that other good stuff, it's like these champions are still way too short range to really do anything. The only reason that this is looking as good as it is because items are really bad, fights are really bad, TS also has a lot of resistances they're otherwise not supposed to have in this game, but they fortunately have. And yeah. Vladimir had a very, very good unnatural spot given to him. I think it's still not over for DRX, but I think that the way that they built and everything definitely makes things a lot worse. Caitlyn ult comes out, Galio not able to really get any good value. The Kindred or the Orianna is like the one thing that can like try to resist stuff, but even there goes the ultimate. No Solari, no Redemption. If they have stuff like this, if, like, Caitlyn just has an extra 1200 HP or something in a fight because of proper itemization and whatnot, because, like, there's no reason for Bard to have Shurelias. There's no reason whatsoever. So if Bard just had a Redemption himself or Solari, even if you end up getting the Eclipse, like, reduction passive, it still, like, gives something, right? So even if you have that going on, it's still totally fine. There's also no Executioners in this. There's no Bramble Vest on like Ornn. Well, actually, it should be Kindred. Kindred should be the one picking up the Executioners most likely. But yeah, pretty much that. TS, they get the Mountain Soul. DRX keeps fighting, and the game ends up ending. So that was pretty much it for this game. Yeah, that was pretty much it.